David kind of looks like the yellow one. You've never
That's
seen
the
David
most
in your
unique
life.
statement I've ever heard anyone say ever. Can you imagine, like having a seat at the bar and some guy walks up? He's like, "Has anyone ever told you you look like the yellow M&M?" I would be so offended.
Hi, welcome to the podcast. I'm Joycelyn, your player 1, and today we've got a player 2. Jacob, care to say hi?
I mean, I feel like it's kind of tradition to not say hi at this point.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I mean, you don't have to say hi, I guess. No one else seems to want to.
All right, moving on.
Yeah, today, Indie House, we've got Oxenfree by Night School Studios, and it is a story adventure thriller game. And the premise of Oxenfree is a supernatural thriller about a group of friends who unwittingly, I've never seen this word before in my life.
God, we're only like 60 seconds in. This is gonna be a long one, isn't
it? Unwittingly open a ghostly rift.
Wait, is the word unwittingly?
Yeah, it is.
That's totally a word. You've never seen that word?
I've seen it, but like I've never actually said it out loud.
Like smart.
Yeah.
When something's unwittingly, it's like you do it on accident.
I've just never said it out loud. I don't
see. I have my own summary that's better than this one.
Do you want to read your summary? Read your summary.
I don't have it written down because I'm lazy.
We'll say it.
But I know it from heart because it's such an amazing game.
Yeah.
Oxenfree is a choose-your-own-adventure supernatural thriller game. You play as Alex, the heroine. She's a teenager, and you are traveling to go do regular teenage shenanigans on Edwards Island with your new stepbrother, Jonas, and your childhood friend, Ren. You meet up with two other girls. I don't remember their names. Nona and, what was the other one? What was the bitchy girl? What was her name? I'm sorry.
I don't remember. I didn't like her.
Where's this thing? Nobody liked her. But her story's cool. It's Clarissa and Nona, the other two girls. So 3 girls, 2 guys on an island, hanging out in the Pacific Northwest, doing regular teenage stuff when you don't have any adult supervision. Do a little bit of smoking, a little bit of drinking, enjoy some good weed brownies, and explore the cool caves on the island. The island is known for having a bit of an interesting history with radios. The United States Army used to conduct radio research back in World War II. So the island has a lot of old military bases, that kind of thing for you to explore. The reason they wanted to focus with radios is because the island has strange properties involving radio waves. You play as Alex and her little radio, and wherever you walk around the island, depending on which channel your radio is tuned to, you reveal different mysteries from the island. And you get to explore the supernatural aspects of what happens when you tune your radio to different channels. Very fun mystery.
Yeah. That is better than the Steam description of the game that I was going to read.
What does Steam say? Just skip over unwittingly.
It's just what you said, but not like as in depth. I need to read the content warnings because they're very important for today's review specifically. There are content warnings for the game. There's actually a lot. I looked up the content warnings like separately, and there's quite a few for this game.
So you know the game is good.
Yeah. The content warnings are death. Well, okay, so let me before I read this list, I need to explain to you that the content warnings that I found for this game, some of them I took off of this list So I recommend looking up the content warnings for yourself.
Wait, why would you take them off?
I left. No. I didn't. I like simplified the list because the list was very specific and it kind of gave stuff away. So
It's like
I
there's
simplified
one character that eats a wheat brownie. It's like whatever. It's like,
yeah. It was like
use.
that. It was like too much information. So I simplified the list, but I recommend looking it up for yourself if you if you are worried about that. So I'll read you my simplified list, but I recommend looking it up. So death, it says particularly by drowning, suicide, possession, death of a family member, unreality, drugs, alcohol, you can choose not to drink, flashing lights, flickering visuals, static, there's also a couple of times where everything is turned upside down abruptly, including dialogue. And that is my list.
I feel like you could just further simplify that, like drugs, alcohol, strong language, and flashing lights.
Yeah, I didn't even include the strong language.
I guess there is strong mentions of suicide, but
yeah, well, I didn't get to that part, and I'll let you know why later.
Oh, so I think that's an important thing to mention, because we did say one of the genres, well, I did in my summary, to choose your own adventure. So when we're reviewing this, even though we played the same game, our experiences are going to be different, because we probably chose vastly different dialogue. You're presented with dialogue every 20 to 60 seconds or so, and depending on the response that you give can drastically change the plot of the game, which is something I appreciate. You know, there's a lot of variety there.
It's very cool. This game costs $9.99 and it's available on Steam for Windows, Mac, and Linux. How long?
I played it on the PlayStation.
What?
Yeah, well, because so here's the thing. So, back when I got it back in the summer, because PlayStation has an annual summer sale, and it was on there for like $5 or something. And I was like, sure, this game looks interesting, and so I bought it. And it's just been sitting in my library, and I've never played it. I wanted to sign up for I Love You, Colonel Sanders, but then Johanna got it to it first. And I was like, well, now I have to pick something else. But I'm glad I went with Oxenfree, because it's a really great game, and I got to hear you guys ramble on about stuff.
The M&Ms.
Yeah, the which M&Ms you find sexually attractive.
Which one do you like?
Why are we going back to this?
This is a part of the podcast now. This is the part. It's because of Johanna. I asked David, now I have to ask you.
I'll go with the blue one, because the blue guy never gets enough love. Okay. Nobody ever sees the blue guy in the commercials.
No one will explain this to me. Well, David tried to, and I still don't understand.
Which one did he choose?
He chose the yellow one, like Johanna said.
I like the yellow one. He's funny.
David kind of looks like the yellow one. You've never
That's
seen David in your life. That's the
most unique statement I've ever heard anyone say ever. Can you imagine? like having a seat at the bar and some guy walks up. He's like, has anyone ever told you you look like the yellow M&M? I would be so offended.
He does kind of look
dumb
like
one.
He does look like the yellow M&M though. if you saw a picture of David and the yellow M&M next to each other, you would think they look similar. I guarantee it. Like, I know you've never seen David before, but like, if they were right next to each other, you would see the similarities.
Interesting. Okay.
How long did it take you to play this game?
So I've seen most people say they could play it in like under 10 hours, but I'm a completionist, so it took me like 15 hours because I wanted to like get every single letter. I wanted to uncover every single anomaly. I'm like super into like the lore of video games, especially supernatural thrillers like Oxenfree and, you know, other games like FNAF and whatever. So I like meticulously went from section to section of the island, exploring every little square inch. And it took me a while, but I think it was fun. And I'll go into detail about some of the reasons why I would recommend doing that later. So I'd say maybe like 13-ish hours. How long did it take you?
I'll tell you this. I didn't finish the game. I couldn't. Okay? And the reason why is before I started playing this game, I didn't look up the content warnings like I usually do for all of these games because I write them in my notes so I can say them
The
out
one
loud.
game that has the most content warnings.
Yeah. And okay, I had
Suicide and flashing lights. I'll be fine.
I've had a particularly stressful like month, and it was the glitching and the static for me, honestly. Like I just
the
couldn't.
more you play the game, it gets worse.
No, I didn't even get through. Like I got to the first part where there's glitching and static, and I was like, I can't play this game anymore because it was too much for me.
Wait, hold on. Now I gotta know, which point did you stop at? Because I completed. I didn't just finish the storyline. I went through like every single little achievement, and you're over here like finishing in like 2 hours.
I played for an hour and a half.
Not even that. Oh my god. Okay, so what she's referring to is I just want to explain it because I don't know if people would understand what the heck we're talking about. Within Oxenfree, like I mentioned, you're given handheld radio, and as you're exploring the island, you can tune the radio to unlock different secrets. As you approach more supernaturally dense areas, the screen becomes distorted. Sometimes it's upside down. Sometimes there's TV static. Sometimes there's crazy flashing colors and like supernatural nonsense. So visually, that's why there's like the trigger warning in case you're like light sensitive. I guess I don't know how far into the game you got, but it gets way worse towards the end.
Do you know where there's like the hut and you go in and you get locked in, and then when you leave there's a chair that like magically appears there? Is that like the very beginning? Honestly. Yeah, that's where I stopped pretty much. Like after I went past the tent and then it started doing the like static and glitchy thing, and it was like the unreality where it's like, wait, this just happened.
I can't believe that was a trigger warning. Unreality. Like if you have like dissociative disorder and you're like scared and you don't know if you're real or not.
Yeah.
If you struggle with the concept of mortality and realism, you should not play this game.
Yeah, no. Yeah, well, so it was just a lot for me, specifically that part. Like, it wasn't even, I don't know what exactly was too much for me, but it was too much, so I stopped playing.
There's I like to think that there's like, they're not boss battles, but they're like locked sections where you enter a certain area of the map and you're like stuck there and you have to complete a supernatural puzzle. Some of them are timed. So, and I love games like this, and I don't mind the like glitchy nonsense. I think it's an awesome visual effect. But even I was like, oh my god, this is so confusing. How do I do this? And because it's like kind of like a horror game, every action you take or don't take has the potential to cause harm to one of your friends. So it's like when your friend's life is in danger and you're put on the spot and you have to make a decision within 10 seconds and your whole screen is totally distorted. It's a fun challenge, but there's that level of stress. We were like, oh my god. So I get where you're coming from.
Yeah, it was just a bit much for me.
Yeah, well, trust me, it gets way crazier as you progress.
What would you say like the difficulty of this game? Like, is it easy? I don't think it's easy from what
the game itself. So like I said, it's choose your own adventure. So every time you're presented with dialogue, you have 3 different options to choose from. And from what I can kind of interpret, each different colored bubble of dialogue kind of represents a different personality type that the player might be. I personally am like a very sarcastic person, which you know because I talk all the time. And so I like choosing some of the like witty responses for Alex to give her friends, and it's fun. But you have to make those dialogue decisions within probably like 10 seconds. So you have to read all your dialogue options and then pick one in a pretty short period of time. And like I said, when you're in like a puzzle level, where they're not really levels, but you're like stuck in an area, and you have time decisions to make where there's a lot of things at risk. there are definitely times where you have to like think on your feet, be able to read really quickly. You have to be able to decipher patterns really quickly. So I think the game itself, in terms of like controls and like there's not really combat, it's not that difficult. You're only really given one tool, which is a handheld radio, and you just dial it left and right. So in game, it's not that hard, but when you do enter like dense paranormal areas of the map, it can become extremely difficult. But I enjoy the challenges. And I'd like to mention that from what I've noticed, and I'll get to why later, because I softlocked the game on accident numerous times, so I've had to replay certain sections. Like it's okay, because even if you fail some of the boss levels, it still lets you continue the game. So like even though the risks are high, they're not that bad. And I know that doesn't really make much sense, but after you play the game and you understand how like there's like instances where like time kind of loops and there's like a lot of weirdness going on there. So some of the mistakes you make don't actually matter. Like if you're playing through a loop and then somebody dies, it's like, oh no, somebody died. But then it's like you just loop back again and everything's back to normal. So the consequences aren't as big as you would think they are. So it's high stress in the moment, and some of the puzzles are definitely kind of difficult because you're just like put on the spot. But I wouldn't say it's like super hard as some of the other games, like Dark Souls or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely missed a lot of the dialogue options just because I wasn't paying enough attention. like some things I just didn't select anything for.
Oh, did I just say Dark Scrolls? What the hell am I talking about? Dark Souls.
Yeah.
That was resonating in my mind. I was like, I said that right.
like you said, the controls very simple. I mean, and like the fact that you only really have a radio, like there's nothing else you have to worry about, like inventory wise. No,
there's no inventory at all. I mean, it's just you click a button and it brings up your radio.
Yeah, I did actually like the glitching effect. I liked it.
Cool.
It was too much for me, but I enjoyed it. It was really cool. I liked that. I like the character design kind of reminded me of Night in the Woods. Just a little bit. Like
it's got the same art style.
Yeah, it reminded me of that game. And I really want to play that game for the podcast, but I don't know when I'm gonna do that. But did you like the audio just of this game?
Yeah, what I found interesting is, so again, it's the whole plot centers around like the radio, which I really like, because I feel like that's kind of an aspect that's like of life that's overlooked now in a digital age, is nobody ever really has a radio on them. Like nobody uses walkie-talkies, nobody really uses the radio in their car anymore, nobody sits around in the living room listening to the radio. And so it's fun reading about like all the radio technology. If you look at, I wouldn't really consider this a spoiler because it's on the poster of the game, like triangle shaped, like on the title screen. I don't know how much you know about radio, but I'm pretty sure that's supposed to be interpreted as radio triangulation. Like when you scan points from two different areas and you use trigonometry to like define something within a specified area. So it's interesting because I feel like if you're not as familiar with radio, you can learn a lot of cool things about it. And if you do know a lot about radio, you'll find the game mechanics super interesting, because it's a supernatural game and you kind of use radios to do like almost exorcisms in a way. You use triangulation to exercise. Is that a verb? Exercise?
I think so.
Like a religious exercise.
I think
so
actually that is. Yeah.
So yeah, like using electromagnetic waves as a sciencey religious thing. It's really, really fascinating to me. And then I'm also like a huge like U.S. history nerd, so learning about all their little World War II stories that they plant throughout the island is like really fun to read.
Yeah, I thought like all of the, I don't really like history, but I thought that was kind of cool, I thought it was interesting.
Again, it's supposed to be like an abandoned military base around the island. So as you start exploring them, it's like, because what could be cooler than an abandoned military base, So a lot of interesting stuff in there. And to just kind of steer back to the whole reason why you asked is the sound. Is everything is radio based, and you always have a radio on you, so there's lots of different sound that can play depending on whether you have your radio on or off and what channel you're on. So like I found the beeping noise to be slightly annoying. Like if you have like a bad signal on your radio, there's kind of like that real high pitched noise. That was a little annoying, but it wasn't like that off-putting. And there's a lot of good like standard background music, you know, nothing spectacular, but enough where it gives the island like a nice little feel to it where you feel a little more immersed. But the radio, like, for sure, what I noticed is, and this is just one of the things that I find absolutely fascinating about the game, when you open your radio, which is the only thing you have on you, you can tune into different channels. Depending on which channel you're on and where you are, changes what you hear on the radio. Part of the game is, like I mentioned, World War II, old abandoned military bases. As you walk around the island, you can go on a radio tour. So if you tune into channel like 102 or something, you can walk to various like monuments and hear about the history behind it. Like, this is a monument representing an old submarine. This is a monument representing military history. This is an old house that a lady used to live in, right? Real famous mansion or something. So it's like that kind of thing where it sounds really cool. But then if you tune into other channels, sometimes you'll hear music. Sometimes you'll hear simulcasts from like really old cartoons. Sometimes you'll hear like people talking. And then other times, depending on where you are, and this is why I always had my radio out when I played the game, you'll get that lore that I was talking about because I spent hours playing this game. I noticed that if you're like in the very first section of the game, you're in like a little downtown area with a couple boutiques. If you're standing in front of the antique shop and you turn on your radio and you go to a very specific channel, you'll hear people reciting like a mysterious like poem quote about antiques, but they'll say it in the NATO phonetic alphabet. So it's like encoded almost. If you go out into the middle of the forest and you turn into a very specific channel, you'll hear beeping, which is just like, you'll think that it's just on like, you got to fine tune it, but it's actually someone playing a message in Morse code throughout the forest. So there's small, very mysterious messages scattered throughout the map that you'll only find if you just happen to have your radio out and tune it to the right section. So every time I'd enter a new area, I'd like go through each and every channel on my radio just so I could hear all these cool things. And there's like a subplot to the game. There's the main plot where you and your friends have to uncover the mystery, the supernatural mysteries. Could it be ghosts, aliens, or worst of all, the United States federal government? Nobody knows what it could be. But there's that your standard overall plot, but there's also a subplot that I noticed as I tried to complete all the achievements. When you're on specific radio channels, depending on which section of the island you're on, you get like lore played to you, like messages from like, I'll just call them the ghosts of the past. They're just like, it's lore being played to you over the radio. And as you travel around the island, you can piece together different parts of the story from your radio, and you kind of get this understanding of the history of the island even before you complete the game. So this whole radio concept just really sold it to me. Like, this game is really good. The concept of being able to have, because I mean that's what radios are. They're hidden messages like sprouting out through the airwaves, and you can only hear them if you dial into the right one. And the same thing's true of the game. There's all this hidden lore every step you take that you can't see or hear unless you have your radio on the right channel.
Yeah, I mean that's really, really cool, and I didn't know that. So I mean, maybe I will try again to play this game when I don't know, because I don't know how I can get past some of the like you say there's like flashing lights and stuff. I don't know how I can do that. But I think this game is really interesting, and I kind of want to know more about it, but I don't know if I would be able to play it. Like, I might have to watch someone else play it. I don't know.
I think a few years ago, like Jacksepticeye or someone did a video on it.
Yeah, maybe I'll do that, because I don't know if I can handle the flashing lights if I'm like also in control. But if I'm just watching it, I might be fine. And I think the story is like really interesting, and it's really cool that like they added the details of it being like throughout the with the radio. Like I think the concept of having a radio in a game is like really really cool. It's kind of like games where you have like a camera and you take pictures, because I know in this game you take like there's pictures throughout and there's letters throughout and things like that, and I think that's really cool, like those little details throughout the game. Like it just shows.
And then you can
like,
also examine the photos you take and try to see if there was anything in the background. Help you, like, how do you interpret the photo you took? Like, it really does impact the story.
Yeah. What was your favorite part of this game?
Well, I kind of jumped ahead. It was definitely the radio. You've heard my explanation for it. It's just such a unique concept, because there are other horror games that have radios. I mean, but this one is unique in the sense that you have a whole dial for you to choose from. You can fine tune it however you want, and it's up to you whether you want to listen to the radio or not. Like if you're playing, like just to mention FNAF, just because it's so popular, and I feel like most of the listeners would have had some experience with it. You have a phone call. Somebody calls you every night, and you like listen to whatever the guy's telling you. But in Oxenfree, you have the option of whether you want to have your radio on. Like, if you want to listen to the lore, go ahead. But if you don't, like, sure, do whatever you want. And then whatever channel you're on could change your perception of the game. So it's, even though everybody gets the same radio, every decision you make and every dial you change and every place you go to, it's going to be completely different for everyone.
I think that's, like, the fact that it is, like, choose your own adventure is probably my favorite part, just because I'm not really a big fan of like thriller and horror games like in general, and the fact that it's choose your own adventure and you can like choose what like how it goes for you specifically is really cool. Just because I'm not really a fan of thriller, it's like that kind of made up for it for me. Like I was fine with all the thriller aspects until the glitching part, and then I was like, I don't know about this. But yeah, I mean
the main part.
Yeah, like the main part of the game I couldn't get to because of I was just overwhelmed by all of the effects on the screen, which is my least favorite part. Because I really wanted to finish this game because I was really invested in the story that I was like starting to develop. Right.
Actually, I think it's worth mentioning, like, just because you mentioned like you were invested in the story. I think the reason why it's so easy to get invested in the plot is the characters, because they have dialogue that pops up like very frequently. It's easy to learn a lot about the characters, and you connect with them very easily. Like you learn about their histories, like because it's assumed that you're already friends with these people, but as the player, you don't know anything about them. But through their conversation, you start to piece it together. Oh, this person has an older brother. Oh, this person might have gone to jail. Oh, this person has a sister. What is their sister like? That kind of thing. Why is this person so rude to me? Why is this person like super shy? And it really unravels as the story goes on, and the more you talk with these people as you go on with your adventures.
Yeah. I think, Did you have a least favorite part?
Well, I don't want to go too much into detail because I don't want to spoil anything for anyone that would play the game, or you, because apparently you only played it for like an hour.
Yeah.
But, I'd say one of the things I struggled with was like manual saves. Like I didn't see a way to do that. Did you have manual saves? Because I played on the PlayStation, so it might be different for me. Did you have any of those, or was that not an option?
I don't know. It just kind of saved automatically, and when I closed it, it didn't.
Yeah, so every time you enter into a new area, it auto-saves. But there's no native manual saves. So I can't save the game when I want, and there's no save slots. So one of the things I thought could have made the game way better is if there were 3 save slots. So you could experience 3 different timelines, because every decision you make is going to change the plot. So I wish there was a way to... Maybe there is, and I'm too dumb to figure it out. But a way to kind of go back and see different timelines, see different saves. And then, like I mentioned before, I soft locked a couple of times because my character was glitched in cutscenes, so I had to quit the game and because there's no manual saves, I'd have to repeat a whole section of the island again. And with those puzzles and the like glitching, it can get a little overwhelming having to do it all again. But yeah, I'd say that I wish there was that chance to experience different save files and different timelines better, because one of the driving factors of this game is that every decision you make changes it. And so I think it's quite a shame that you only get one storyline.
Yeah, that's really unfortunate. Yeah, I didn't even remember to write that down. But like when you close out of the game, you can't save exactly where you are. I didn't even realize, really, because I just closed out because it was like glitching all over the place, and I was like, I'm overwhelmed. But yeah, you can't save like wherever you want, which kind of sucks. And like you're saying, with multiple storylines, like most story games like this would have at least a few save slots so that you can go back and like visit other storylines without having to replay the entire game just to get
especially if you like mess up and you're like, oh god, right. I shouldn't have said that, I shouldn't have done this.
Right. Yeah.
Like when you played a Pokemon game, always got a quick save before you fight the Elite Four. You can't go back.
Exactly. Yeah. So would you recommend this game?
Definitely. I'd recommend it. It's a very interesting concept with a good storyline, very well written characters that are easy to connect to, and it takes an interesting approach to the supernatural aspect, because a lot of mainstream horror games, they invest heavily in like their graphics and they want to make things like jump out and be very scary. But I think that this one, it's a lot more nuanced, and as an indie developers, they don't have that kind of money to just throw around at like scary zombies or whatever. They actually have to invest in their interesting concepts and their characters and their storyline, and it really comes through for me. So I definitely recommend it.
Yeah, I also recommend the game, especially if you like thriller games and choose your own adventure. I think it's good at it's really good at both of those things. And if you choose to play the game, just remember to look at the trigger warnings before you play the game, and don't like go into it blindly like I did.
Recommendation. She only played for 90 minutes.
Well, look, I still rated it a 9 out of 10 tokens. Like I'd
give it a good 8 out of 10. I would have given it like a 9
8 out of
but
10?
But I can't get over the fact that the best part of the game is limited by the fact that you can't save. Like, that just seems so important.
That's true. That really is a downer. Like, I mean, it doesn't really make sense for it to be like that.
Well, I think like I mentioned when I was talking about the whole like what's at risk kind of thing, is some of the decisions you make, even though it's going to change the story, sometimes the outcome is going to be the same regardless, so it doesn't really matter. But the attitudes that the other characters have towards the player will change, and so the dialogue you're presented, the decisions you're allowed to make, could become restricted based on how you've been treating them.
Well, you said you rated it an 8 out of 10 tokens?
Yeah, but I'd strongly recommend it.
Yes. I mean, I think we both strongly recommend this game. And with my 9 out of 10 tokens, that leaves the final rating as an 8.5 out of 10 tokens for both of us. So that, I guess that's the rating that it gets. I think that's the first time I've rated something higher than anyone else.
I mean, I totally agree with the 9. It's because the game is so good that I don't want to give it a perfect score. Like, it's so good. Why couldn't it have just? It had so much potential to be the perfect indie game, but why do you have to do it like this?
Yeah, that's really frustrating.
But I'd recommend it if any of you are fans of like Stranger Things or Gravity Falls. Like, it's the combination of those two, where it's like you have that supernatural element, and you gotta use the radio to kind of decipher like what's going on. And then it takes place in a sleepy little island in the Pacific Northwest. Like, it's beautiful scenery with great artwork. Like, if you are a fan of either of those two series, you're gonna love this game.
Thank you guys for joining me on this episode of Indie House. And Jacob, thanks for joining me. Any last words or socials? I don't think you had any socials, but last words.
Has anybody else given any last words, or should I be the guy that starts the new trend of not saying anything and just leaving?
I mean, you don't have to say anything. I don't think anyone else has not said anything, though.
Should I just stay in awkward silence?
You can if you want to.
Reality is an illusion. The universe is a hologram. Bye, gold. Bye!
Oh my gosh. And be sure to rate the episode and let me know your thoughts. I've got a Discord server called Indie House Official, which would be a great place to give your feedback and talk to me, my collaborators, or other listeners of the show. If you have any indie game suggestions, feel free to comment below or hit me up at indiehouse_pod on Twitter or Instagram using the hashtag IndieHouseGaming. And if you would like to support the podcast, get some cool extra content, you can find the Patreon in the card. Catch us next week on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Google Podcasts. See y'all on next
I have a
level.
recommendation.
What? What is the recommendation?
Oxenfree 2.
Oh my god.
Now's the part where you play the to be continued me from JoJo and then end it. Quick!
Bye!